That's gonna be a weird angle. All right. These channels, if I can get my pointer in this channel right here, has to be cleared. This block has to either be flush or the block has to be further inward past this channel. That channel is where your buttstock rides in. Of course, you probably know most of this stuff about the gun already since you've owned the AEG. But yeah, you want to make sure that this is pressed in far enough for the buttstock. So I'm going to do a quick test with the buttstock. It goes in, boom. So there we go. On the topic of buttstock, where is my line going to go through? You can run your line out this hole where the lever is, since the lever doesn't really need to go that far back. It just has to go far enough to unlock. But I did that for a little bit. Didn't like how the angle of the line was. Felt like there was, gonna get a pinch. So I just drilled a hole back here. It's a little harder to thread the hose through, but it keeps it a little bit more out of the way, more in a straight line, so it's not gonna kink or have a sharp bend or get pressed by the button. So that's where I drilled my hole. Alright. There we go. Ow. Alright. Next up, I'm gonna lay this across here. If I can stop this from moving a little bit. There we go. Next up is going to be a charging handle. Charging handle and the Daytona charging handle nub. Now, these two holes right here are where this nub go in. It might be a little bit too big. I didn't want to press fit. I still wanted it kind of loose, not too loose. So I just put it in my drill, filed it down, just small enough where it just drops in freely. Just in case if I have to take this apart and whatever, I don't have to scratch this up a lot by using pliers trying to pull it out. Like I said, it's just going to be held in with it by itself by pressure. There's no way this is once you put this all together, it's going to fall out. On the real 240, the charging handle kind of sits about there sometimes. At least on the 240s I've used, I've noticed that the charging handle doesn't stop here, it goes here. So if you want it to stop here, you put it in the front hole. And that's going to put it about here. But I wanted a little bit more like the 240 I used to use. So I'm going to put it in the rear hole. And then you're just going to, there's the hole right there, or right there. Just gonna drop it in, wiggle it in, there we go. Alright. Next is you're going to put the lower part of the channel for the charging handle. You're going to want to hold this in place and drop this in. Boom. Then push it forward. And it should be aligned. So that's your charging handle right there. Just like your 240 as AEG, you're going to use the same screws to lock in these bottom plate. These require the same screws. So, like all the other screws, I'm going to put some Loctite. Boom. Drop it in the hole. That's the rear screw hole. Then you also got the two holes back here, or the two screw holes. Put a little Loctite on these. If you're not familiar, blue Loctite is sort of the more mild version of Loctite. Basically, there's two major forms of Loctite, like for threads. You have red and blue. Blue will stop your screws from backing out with vibration or whatever just fine. But let's say you want to take this screw out to service or do whatever you need to do, you need to have that screw be able to be removed. Pretty much if you use blue Loctite correctly, it should come out with little issue. Now, let's say you want that screw to live there forever. You don't want that screw ever coming out again. You would use red Loctite. And obviously blue Loctite's blue, red Loctite's red. This one is confusing because the actual bottle is red, but it's blue. But yeah, to take screws out that have red Loctite, you would pretty much need heat. You would need to heat up the bolt or whatever surface that the bolt or screw is screwed into with heat to pretty much melt or break the bond of the thread locker. So if you're okay with having a part not being able to be removed easily or at all ever again, red Loctite's what you're going to want to use. But blue Loctite, just because it's removable, doesn't mean it's any less effective than red. Blue Loctite is used in automobiles, in like parts of the axles and the drivetrain. It will work. It just stops the screw from backing out itself with vibration. It acts as like a dampener in between the threads, kind of almost like a glue as well, just to keep that screw in there. But little lesson on Loctite. Very important with Daytona since there's a lot of recoil, and if you're using a lot of full auto or full auto only, you're gonna have a lot of vibration. So you're gonna want to use thread lock. Do it now and have peace of mind, or don't do it and you might lose parts that you can't get. Especially with the 240, it's almost impossible to find parts for 240s without having to buy a whole 240. So that is that. That works. Alright. So we got that. Let's put the buttstock on. Actually, no, let's wait. I'm gonna go over the trigger. Let me close this up to Loctite before I lose it all. Go over the trigger. Now, with your regular AEG 240, when you pulled the trigger, it hit the electronic switch, which actuated the gearbox, and the gearbox also sent electricity to the box mag, so the box mag would wind and feed BBs. Well, with the Daytona, it's gas, so there's no electric, except for the box mag. So, to solve that issue, you can either have an automatic winding box mag, which I'm sure they work fine, I just don't like them. There's just one more sensor or whatever to fail or burn out. I like to keep things simple. So, what I did, and what other people do, is they put a switch right behind the trigger. I got these cheap switches on Amazon. I pretty much bent this. Yeah, I'll show you when I get it out. But this is a switch right here. So when you pull the trigger, it pushes the bar. The bar then sends or completes the circuit, allowing power to go to the motor in the box mag to feed the BBs. Right here. Now, with the way I did it, not necessarily saying this is how you have to do it for this, because the way you have your button switch set up, you could do it anyway. Some people might even put just a pressure pad right here, so they don't have to do anything to trigger. They just have a pressure switch right here, and just, when they need BBs, they just squeeze, like so. For me, I just want to keep this sort of cleaner looking. I didn't want any wires really on the side. I didn't want the tape or glue. But the only thing is, for the way I did it, I wasn't able to use my safety. My safety is non-functional, so that would be safe, but I can still pull the trigger. And so yeah, I lost part of my safety mechanism because of the switch. You could probably do the same exact thing I'm doing, but with a smaller switch. And you could probably still keep the safety, but my switch sits about here. Yeah, right about there. So I'm just gonna quickly show you how I did mine, just so you can get an idea. So I'm just gonna take this cover off real quick. I'm not gonna go too crazy into it. If you guys want me to go crazy into it, I will be willing to show you. But this is the way I did it. I don't have a safety, which kind of bugs me, because me being a gun guy and in the military, I like to be able to put my weapon on safe. Just because. I'm gonna take this cover off. There we go. So you can see the switch right down there. So basically, you can take this trigger guard off with this pin right here. I'm not gonna do it right now. You'll punch out the pin for the hammer. I mean, for the trigger. You'll punch out the pin for the trigger spring, since you don't really need it anymore. This also gives you a lighter trigger pull. Not only do you have the spring from the switch, but you also have the spring from the valve and the gun. So you pretty much have two springs that are pushing back on the trigger. The third one is just huge and very powerful, and I feel like if I still had it, if I could even keep it, which I don't think I could, it would just be too much, and the trigger pull would just be ridiculous. So, but yeah, you punch out the pin right here, which is where your rear safety sear, whatever you want to call it, was. You punch out that pin, then you would undo this screw right here, this flathead screw. Inside, you want to be careful because there is a ball and spring, just like on the charging handle assembly. So you be careful with that, take that out, and then you'll be able to just pull the safety out. Of course, you take off the grips first. After you've done all that, you'll have a pretty much completely stripped trigger guard. So the next thing I did was, when I had this trigger guard off and everything removed, I took a drill with like a 1/2-inch drill bit, and I just drilled and drilled and drilled, and pretty much I stopped drilling just as I broke free. So if I drilled probably not even 2 millimeters more, this would be a 1/2-inch hole back here. This is just where the tip of the drill bit broke through. That's when I stopped. And what I did with this switch is, where are my pliers? Oh, right here. What I did with the switch is about here, made a bend. I'm doing this very crudely. I got a 6-pack of switches anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much. And if I'm correct, yes. Bend right here. Bend right there. I'll make that bend a little bit more. This one a little bit more. And a cut. I'll show you in a second what kind of bends I did. There we go. So this is what my trigger switch looks like in my pistol grip, like so. The trigger's gonna push back on here, and that's gonna drop it or push the button. I thought about just mounting it this way, which you think would be easier, but that just gets in the way of a lot of things. Now, I exactly don't know what switch you're gonna buy. I don't know how your switch will be wired, but if you get a switch like this, this is how I bent the actuating arm, or whatever you want to call it, you will be breaking off this tab right here, this front one. You only need the lower and this one. You can see from the diagram, basically this is your common wire, and these are your two other points of contact, or second and third points of contact. So this is pretty much right now. Button is depressed, there's nothing pressing the button. It's going to this, so that means this and this are a complete circuit. Now you wire it to this one, which means that when your switch is not pressed, this and this are an open circuit. There's no power being able to cross through. Once you push, think of that little diagonal line right there as an arm. That's now being pushed down and now completing the circuit to the lower. Sort of like this. So it's like that. Then I press and it goes down. So now these two are connected. Like I said, I don't know what switch you're using, but this is the switch I have. I don't have a safety, but that's fine for now. But yeah, I pretty much drilled out this hole, had to file a lot and grind to get this to sit and fit. Next, as you can see on my switch, there are holes. So I lined up where the switch was, saw where the hole was going to be, and just drilled a hole straight through one side. And now I have a pin in there. I don't even know what drill bit I used, but like I said again, I don't even know what switch you guys are going to choose, so this is how I did it. But yeah, pinned just the back of the switch in, and that's fine. The front of the switch is being held in pretty much by the trigger. So even if it does move a little bit, it's not moving enough to really do much. Plus, it's not under a lot of stress. Obviously, have it wired. Don't pay attention to red and black. It doesn't matter. As a switch, you're not wiring positive to negative. The switch is just, if you think about it, the switch is like a valve. So you can't put a valve on that attaches a supply and a return. Your valve can only go on the supply, or your valve can go on return. So I put my switch wired to the negative of my magazine. So think of it as these are both black wires. That can be a whole, yeah, I'm gonna go into a whole separate thing if you need me to on the wiring. Anyway, back to the build. Let's put the stock on. I'm not gonna really show you me threading the HPA line through the stock, since it all depends where you want to put your hose. Boom. Put the gun upside down. Let me put the trigger back together. So I'm sorry guys that this is such a long video and whatever. I just wanted to go in as much detail as I can. Any detail that I can do can really help. I know when I was researching how to do this build, there was one video by this guy. He seems like a really good guy, nothing against him, it's just he didn't show a lot of the details I was looking for, and he didn't really speak English well. Like I said, that's not faults of him, he comes from another country. Kudos to him for actually trying to make the tutorial in English, even if it wasn't good English. I'm seriously not trying to badmouth this guy. Like, he's a cool dude. I have watched his videos over and over just in anticipation for this build. So, but I thought I'd try to be the first native English-speaking person to do a video on how to put this gun together. So, but yeah, pretty much everything I'm doing right now is the normal stuff. Except for one thing, I forgot to run this wire inside the body, which I'll show you how I did. So if I can get this right here, I ran the wire from the back of the trigger through the hole in this part of the buttstock and out. Now, I have no idea how I'm gonna do this on camera. I'm gonna try. You're gonna have, oh my goodness, you're gonna have a small gap. Let's see if I can somehow bring you in a little bit. At all, there's no way I can do this. But you're gonna have this kind of so big. There we go. Let's try to do it like this. Boom. You're gonna have this gap right here. And I run the wire as close to this side as I can this way. So I'm just gonna thread it through, and you'll be able to feel it on the other side coming out right here. And then I'm also gonna, at the same time, don't fall. At the same time, thread the HPA line through. Come on, come out. There we go. Boom. Put everything in. Make sure you don't clip anything when putting the buttstock back on. Boom. And just pull the wire. Boom. I'm gonna, heat shrink this at some later point, but that is, it's gonna run alongside here. Now, I've done tests, and even if there's slack and it's bent like this, there's a very low chance of the bolt snagging it and ripping it. But in any case, I'm gonna keep it nice and flat to the side and out of the way. And luckily the bolt has that angle, 45-degree angle grind on both sides of the top, so that helps clear the wire. Might as well show you the feed tray cover and what I did. This is only pretty much for wiring. Now, if you choose, you can run the wires through the top of, or on the outside of your 240. Me, I'm very adamant about keeping a gun looking nice, clean, nothing hanging off the outside, keeping it looking like it was, like how it meant to be on the field or wherever. Let's put the pin back. Boom. Open the feed tray cover. What I did was I cut a little notch right here. Put the wire in. Oh shit, sorry. Close the lid and it won't get pinched, it won't get snagged. It's nice, comes right out here and goes right to your box mag. I have it connected using one of these sort of like JST servo connectors. It's the only really small connectors I sort of have laying around. This is the male side. The female side is wired to the box mag. But like I said, I'll do a whole part on the electronics if you guys want me to. But yeah, thank you guys. This is my 240 build. I will do a shooting and full assembly soon. Pretty much all that's left is you slap in the inner/outer barrel assembly, just like on the AEG. The hop-up unit is kind of self-explanatory. Like I said, guys, if you want me to do a separate video on the hop-up unit and inner barrel, I'll do one. I am gonna do a video soon in the future of the wiring and how to wire everything correctly for the box mag. And any other things that you think I should do a video on, just let me know, and I'd be happy to try to make a video or send you an email or help you out by sending you messages and pictures of how to do this build. But this is pretty much the basics, besides the hop up and inner barrel. But yeah, just remember, Loctite every screw you can, because they will come loose. But anyway, thank you guys, and have a good day.